I just happen to be semi-familiar with Acton, which is
Yeah.
where this started, and then I know it evolved since then. Just because I've got a couple buddies in Austin, they were sending their kids there. John Broman runs a really cool group, Front Row Dads, and so there was a lot of conversation around education there. And then I think the other thing I see is COVID blew everything up, and then all of a sudden parents were homeschool teachers, and then I think that's where like some of this like I'll call it like a movement that's
Mm.
happening right now that I feel when it comes to children and education and a different approach to it. So can you maybe give us like the beginner's version of what is the difference between here's my public school or private school K through 12 experience and here was Acton's approach and then how that's even evolved to what you're doing now?
Yeah, for sure. The best way I can describe it is school gets you really good at school. So we've been sold this thing that this idea that school and the way that we all have grown up going to it, what I call the conveyor belt model, was maybe somehow put together by a group of experts that said, look, this is how child development works, and here are the foundational things they need to know or need to do to be good at life. And not only is that extraordinarily far from the truth, it doesn't map out to the real world at all. You and I both know people who crushed it in school and are having a really hard time in life. We also know people who had a really hard time in school, who are crushing it in life. And that's
Mm-hmm.
partially because these are two different games altogether. Just because somebody's really good at basketball doesn't mean they're good at baseball. Just because they both have a ball and there's a team involved, like there's these little tiny things that cross over, but it's not the same game. Well, school and life aren't the same game either. So conveyor belt schooling gets you good at school. What we were doing on the Acton Academy side and on the Apogee School side is a microcosm of the real world. So what that means is we take the meta skills that actually matter and transfer. So are you able to communicate effectively? Are you able to think logically? Are you able to engage in civil discourse? Meaning you can articulate what it is you believe and why you believe it, but you're also able to genuinely listen to somebody else's point of view who may or may not agree with you. You're willing to consider their evidence and be brave enough to go, okay, well, your evidence is better. Maybe I'll change my mind. Or self-confident enough to go, okay, I see your evidence. I still don't necessarily agree, but we can be friends. Like we're okay. Right. So that's something that's actually a meta skill that transfers over to be beneficial in real life. So we want them to be able to engage in Socratic thinking and being able to understand logical fallacies, like to actually be good communicators. We want them to understand that physical education and physiology is the precursor to what's trendy now is to say mental health for young people. Well, physical health is the precursor to mental health. We want them to understand what finances look like, and we will do it often through the lens of entrepreneurship. All of our kids are going to start businesses every year or take their existing business into perpetuity. Not because they have to be an entrepreneur, but because of the lessons that are transferable, right? We want them to be um, experience based. I won't even say project based because people don't really know what that means and they take it a different direction. We want things to be experience based. Um, an example that I like that Elon Musk gave is he said, school goes, all right, everybody sit down. We're going to teach you about wrenches. Here's a wrench. This is a socket wrench. And nobody cares. None of the kids care and they don't know what it is. But if you take the young heroes and you're like, hey, check out this engine. This car's freaking sweet. Check out this engine. This engine's broken though. Let's go fix it. And they go in and they jump in and they're trying to fix it because they have a goal of doing something. And in the process, it's like, oh, okay, I need a wrench for that. That's what this is right here, right? That's an experience that you can root things to
Mm-hmm.
versus just yapping at people, right? And so we built out a bunch of experiences and projects based on that. Very internship heavy, very apprenticeship heavy, very personal responsibility heavy, including jobs on campus. The whole idea was I wanted to get all of my campuses to be completely run start to finish by young people.
Mm.
All of it. If you
So
can get
the kids at the school are actually maintaining the school. Are they like cleaning the bathroom and refilling the paper towels? Like, is that what you're talking about?
Oh, they're cleaning the bathrooms, refilling paper towels. They are hosting the parent meetings. They are hosting the open houses. They are hosting the exhibitions. They are the ones giving the tours. My chef at my Roseville campus was 17 and he hired
Wow.
13 and 14-year-olds. He went down to Weston A. Price, went down there, learned how to cook, went to some culinary programs, self-taught a little bit on how to cook, made real food every day, and had to hire 12 and 13-year-olds who had to interview for the position to go in and become the kid. Like, that's a microcosm of the
How
real.
cool.
So would you
Okay,
rather
so I've
have
got,
that or somebody who's really, really like can't talk, self-conscious, man, but they got an A in trig? Who cares?
so, okay, a couple of thoughts there. First off, I'm assuming if you have to clean the bathroom, you probably try not to mess it up too much, where it's a little bit self-policing. And I'm just thinking back to my grade school lunches where, some days it wasn't too great. It's hard to complain about the food when your peers are the one making the food. So what are the learnings that come out of kind of that self-policing environment, I guess?
Yeah, you learn that rules of engagement matter, meaning rules of engagement on a good conversation. How do you do this well? How do you um, have a conversation with somebody who is responsible for messing the bathroom up? How do you do it well? And then how do you hold those kind of boundaries? And then if you're the person who's, kind of being the offender of these boundaries, how do you respond to that? What is the penance for things like that? How do we come to something fair? How do we have, like, these are the conversations you end up having, and we end up creating these codes of character. And it's really what we call it. We call it a contract. It's exactly what it is. We create a contract where it's like, look, this is who I'm going to be. This is how I'm going to show up. We have a ceremony around signing that contract, and we go, look, we're all agreeing to this. We're in this together. So let's do this the right way. If you break contract, you are potentially not going to be here, and that's not even going to be an adult decision. I've had to refund tuitions because students fired other students.
Mm.
There's life lessons there, and those are hard conversations. You get used to having that kind of thing. That's normal as a young person. That's a superpower as an adult going into the workplace, going into relationships.
Well, it sounds to me like running a business almost. It's like, hey, you've got people on the team. You need to align them around this mission, these core values. And by the way, those that aren't aligned with that, if you don't have tough conversations and either they level up or transition out, then you're hurting the collective whole of the team. So it sounds like you're kind of turning a school into a mini version of what could be, I guess, termed a business, but they're also learning while they're participating. Is that, how do you feel about that definition?
I mean, that's legit. It's a microcosm of the real world. It's a microcosm of the skills that are going to actually matter. Like, that's the point. We're learning to play the game that you're going to play for the rest of your life. You're learning to play the infinite game versus the finite game that makes you wonder later on why you're not good at the infinite game.